No matter what, people will commit to misunderstanding you. What's most important is your commitment to understanding yourself. Hello, you guys. My name's Nkirka Madani, known as NK, and welcome back to Misunderstood. How to stop feeling overwhelmed by everyday life. I've really wanted to center a podcast episode around feeling overwhelmed. Being overwhelmed is such a big emotion that we all face at some point in our lives, and maybe for some of us, we feel that way more regularly. I have personally struggled with being overwhelmed in so many pockets of life. I wouldn't say that I've mastered feeling overwhelmed. However, when I feel very overwhelmed, I do a few core things that help me get on track again. And for a lot of us, feeling overwhelmed can halt us from getting our to-do list done, from doing the things that we want to do. And it can really start to weigh on us. There are times where I have felt lazy, but I'm not lazy. I just needed to take back control of my life. And that is what I would say for you listening. If you have ever felt overwhelmed, I don't want you to have a negative emotion towards that and feel that you are not being proactive or being productive. Being overwhelmed is a very true emotion that so many people face. And I really wanted to tackle that head on in this episode. And as always, I'm going to give a lot of different examples of how being overwhelmed can show up, but then also how you can effectively overcome it. But before we get started, take some time right now to rate this show, Misunderstood, 5 stars. I'm so happy with the viewership of this podcast. So many of you guys are finding comfort in this space. As I like to say in every single episode, this is a safe space for anybody who feels misunderstood in any way, shape, or form. I want you guys to always feel like you can come over here on this corner of the internet and feel heard and feel seen. So if you have not already, please do the free and easy step of rating the show Misunderstood 5 stars on both Apple and Spotify. Also take some time to leave a written review on Apple. That helps other people learn more about the show. Thank you so much. So let me first start off by saying we keep it real on this podcast. Every single time I come on the mic, I do try to put my best foot forward. I will also say that it was actually overwhelming me to come on the mic specifically this morning. I do feel a little out of it. I feel a little groggy, and I do have quite a big to-do list of items to do, not only today, but this week. So you can say I am actively overwhelmed as I am recording this episode, but I'm sharing that with you guys to clue you in on how I feel, as I always do on every single podcast episode. But I think it is important to share in real time how things are going, because you guys on the opposite end of this can really connect with me. You can really see how I take being overwhelmed and how I'm navigating through it. And I never ever want it to come across as I am the be all and end all of getting through emotions, because I'm not. I'm a human just like everyone else. I have normal emotions just like everyone else. But I just decide to get on the mic and speak from the heart about said emotions to hopefully inspire other people to get out of a stuck feeling. So when we think about being overwhelmed, we can literally put that into so many different parts of our life. I think about moving to a new apartment. I think about building a social life, studying for finals, preparing for a presentation, editing content, even hanging out with friends sometimes can be overwhelming. I want to take you guys a little bit in all of those mini stories to explain how I have gotten through them in the past. But let's break down the actual emotion of feeling overwhelmed. Feeling overwhelmed often stems from a high internal pressure to be a perfectionist, to people please. These are two very strong traits that I used to have growing up, wanting to please my parents, wanting to please my peers at the time. I was a true people pleaser for most of my life thus far, and that honestly came at a really big detriment to me, to my growth, to my development, because I was living for other people. I wanted to sacrifice my own well-being to please other people, which is so bad and so negative. If you are listening to this and if you are a people pleaser, I really want you to actively try to work on getting out of that mindset. Being a people pleaser is directly linked to often feeling overwhelmed in your everyday life. And of course, perfectionism. I am pretty type A. I used to be a lot more type A, so I'm actually very proud of myself because over time I have definitely lessened my grip on being so hyper type A. Definitely look back on all the times where my perfectionism cost me a lot of peace. I let being a perfectionist rule my life to the point of not being able to let things go, not being able to just say that something is good enough. I need to piece it and make it absolutely perfect, and honestly drive myself insane. That caused a lot of tears, that caused a lot of sleepless nights, that caused a lot of internal stress within me that I did not need to go through. But feeling overwhelmed is not just those internal factors. There are external factors to being overwhelmed that we absolutely have to address. Think high workloads at work, life transitions like moving apartments, moving to a new city, state, country, and information workload. And this could literally mean social media and being inundated with so many different types of content, so many different pieces of information in the news, media. All of that is external stressors and add pressure to us and will ultimately leave us feeling overwhelmed. So when I was doing research, I saw a lot of articles were using the term psychological flooding. We are literally being flooded with information, with new projects and ideas and external pressures that truly leave us feeling like we can't cope. And that term psychological flooding honestly makes me think about one of my past podcast episodes, which was all about nervous system regulation. I believe nervous system regulation is so crucial here when we are talking about not feeling so overwhelmed with life. When we regulate our nervous system, we are taking back autonomy. We are taking back power within ourselves to understand that we are our home. We are our safe space. We are our anchor. We can anchor ourselves back into reality. We can take hold and take back control of our life, of our time, of our mind to feel less overwhelmed and honestly start thriving again. And a few key points of nervous system regulation that I did want to mention in this episode is sleep. I believe sleep is such a huge component for nervous system regulation. We all, of course, need sleep. This is an obvious item. However, so many people do not get enough sleep to actually function properly. I actually think back to college where I would sleep in the library during final season, which was not good. Don't recommend, but I was so overwhelmed with my workload. I was so overwhelmed with the need to be perfect and the need to get all A's and the need to stay on the honors track. I let sleep slip away completely. I was not even getting 5 hours of sleep at the time per night, which was really unhealthy. And fast forward to now, and I have mentioned this on some recent podcast episodes, but I am proud to say that I pretty much get 8 hours of sleep at least a night regularly. And it is because I am, one, taking back control of my life, my mind, and my body, but also I am making sure that I'm regulating my nervous system because I know how important sleep is to the overall mechanism of me. If I do not sleep, if I do not let my body rest, if I do not actually get a few REM cycles in each night to power down fully, to recharge fully, to let my body actually rest and reset, I am doing a disservice to myself. I am not showing up for myself in the ways that I need to. And that is the reason why I'm overwhelmed with life. Just think about all the times where you are not well rested. You feel like shit. Every single time I go to bed super late. Every single time I do not get enough sleep, which is now just very here and there. It's usually when I go out and I'm only getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep because I'm drinking. But I always wake up that next day feeling so overwhelmed. I feel like I can't even get through the day. It's such a shitty feeling. All of that is to say, sleep is so important and everyone should absolutely prioritize your sleep. I actually have a few friends who are a little bit on the insomniac track, and I've talked to them about using melatonin, but also it might be a point of chatter with your doctor to see if there's anything more serious there, and hopefully there isn't anything more serious, but there are conversations that you need to be having with the right people to make sure that you're actually powering down and you're actually sleeping properly. And maybe that means getting medicine, and maybe that means doing different alternatives, but your sleep is, I think the biggest part of nervous system regulation. The next one for nervous system regulation is exercise. I preach about exercise all the time. I am a very active person. I live a pretty active lifestyle, and I am currently still rehabbing my injury. However, outside of that, exercise has always been such a big importance in my life because outside of the physical benefits, I feel mentally sound. I feel mentally reset and truly peaceful when I actually take myself to the gym, when I go outside and take a walk. It doesn't have to be this big whole routine at the gym. And I actually don't even go to the gym for that long, but I am very succinct. When I'm there with a purpose, and I'm there to make sure that I am tapping into myself. I am stepping away from anything that is overwhelming to me, and I'm making sure that I am putting myself first. Because truly, when it comes down to it, when you are overwhelmed, you are putting other things and other people before your own peace of mind and your own wellness. A very big pillar of Misunderstood is making sure that you're taking back your own power. And taking back your own power means that you will have to say no to people. You will have to do things for yourself. And some people might not like that, but that's not the point. The point is to make sure that you feel sound. You are okay. You are taking care of yourself. So if you need to step outside for a walk in the middle of the day at work, your boss better let you because you deserve to feel okay. You deserve to feel calm. By you being more calm, you're able to actually just be more productive at work. You're able to be more productive in the rooms and the spaces and the people you are around. And actually, a lot of what I just said bleeds into my next point of nervous system regulation, which is setting boundaries. There are a lot of ways that everyone needs to be setting boundaries in your day-to-day to actually stop being overwhelmed. There are so many ways that I have been doing this. One huge thing that I've talked about on past podcast episodes, but a huge thing that I've done to not be so overwhelmed is to turn on Do Not Disturb on my phone. I actually have it around the clock. I have it on all my social apps, and it is always on. It is intentionally always on because I realized that I needed to silence the world to center myself. I'm someone who gets pretty distracted if I let distractions happen. I realized that I needed to eliminate the distractions entirely to be able to feel more balanced and feel more at peace and less overwhelmed. And the era before I turned on Do Not Disturb was a really chaotic era for me, especially being a content creator. All of the notifications you get on your phone from Instagram, from TikTok, from YouTube, from Pinterest, every single other app. And then also, I run a management agency, so I get a ton of emails every single day. I'm talking 40, 50 emails at least every single day. All of those notifications made me actually sick to my stomach. I felt so overwhelmed and I started to panic. I said, I can't do this if I am being inundated with all of this on my own. And I'm also doing all of it by myself. So your girl was not in a good mindset and mind space back then. I think it's already been about 3 years since I have turned on Do Not Disturb, and my life has been so much more peaceful because of it. I am looking at the notifications on these social apps on my own time. Nothing is urgent. I'm not in an urgent job. So therefore, I don't need to be doing things with urgency unless a certain project calls for it. But most times, nothing is ever that serious. I need to make sure that I am not overwhelmed. That is the most important thing. And that is what I would tell anybody. If you feel overwhelmed by your line of work and whatever you do, you need to get to the source of it and you need to eliminate what is actually making you feel overwhelmed. That might include having conversations with your boss, your supervisor, and letting them know there are things you want to work on to be a more effective employee, to be a better team player. These are conversations that come across honestly so maturely because you are taking the time to assess within yourself what you need to be better. That is so mature, and that should read well with any situation that you're in. And I believe that all of that does culminate into setting boundaries for yourself. You know what you need. Don't let anybody make you feel like you don't, because you do. So being able to understand that in yourself and then also be able to effectively communicate that to the right people is a game changer. And the last one for nervous system regulation in relation to how to stop feeling overwhelmed is nutrition. A lot of people let nutrition slip. I have been in that era. Whenever I used to get overwhelmed, I would always go buy Haribo gummy bears, and I would always eat an entire bag of Haribo gummy bears in one sitting every single time that I was overwhelmed. The funniest part of that is a few of my friends noticed that I did that so many times back in San Francisco before I moved to New York. And they said, she has her gummy bears in her room. That means she's overwhelmed. And yes, a lot of us do have our comfort foods and our comfort meals and our comfort candy and our cheat consumptions. That one was mine. And I'm sharing that with you guys because although that was a sign within myself and a signal for me knowing that I was overwhelmed, it wasn't a good one. Eating that much candy that often is not good. Of course, it's not good for my teeth. It's not good for my health. Eating that much sugar honestly made me look very bloated. That wasn't a great era. And every single time recently now that I do feel overwhelmed, I don't let my body slip into those negative habits again. And no, I'm not saying that you should not eat candy ever. I love candy and I still eat it from time to time. But I didn't want to make that a habit, because if you make bad foods a habit, then it's going to become a lifestyle. And we don't want that to negatively impact our lifestyle. Now, when I buy foods, I definitely make sure to not snack as much. But when I do snack, I actually have so many more healthy alternatives with my snacks. And pretty much everything I buy is from Trader Joe's. I love Trader Joe's. I used to make Trader Joe's vlogs when I started doing YouTube. That's how much I ride for Trader Joe's. And now currently I go to Trader Joe's twice a month to do my grocery hauls. And every single time I go there, I make sure to buy exclusively whole foods. I try to focus on 3 main meals every single time I go to Trader Joe's, and I try to rotate them every now and then. Yes, there are meals that I love so much that I consider staples that are easy and fulfilling, and I love them, so I'm going to continue making them. But to add some variety, try to change up that rotation from time to time. And then with my snacking, there are a few items at Trader Joe's that I absolutely love. Do I know the exact names of all of them right now? I don't. But there's some healthier tortilla chips, there's some goji berries, there are a few gummy snacks that I love so much that are way, way healthier than the Haribo gummy bears that I used to eat at least once a week. I feel so much better because I know that I'm putting good in my body that is, of course, regulating my nervous system. Overall, it is making me feel less overwhelmed because my body feels better internally. Your body sends signals to your brain. When you put bad food into your body as well, that definitely amplifies the feeling of not feeling great. It's almost a spiral. Then you start to feel even more overwhelmed because you know that you just ate bad, and then you already have so many other things that you're stressed out about. It is a negative cycle. So make sure that you're putting good in your body because that is a very important part to this equation of feeling less overwhelmed. Okay, and now I want to talk about immediate and long-term tips to combating the feeling of being overwhelmed. So let's start with the immediate fixes. So think about when you were literally in the thick of it. Maybe you are feeling overwhelmed literally right now as you are listening to this episode, wherever you are. So try some of these out. Number 1 is step away. Step away from the desk. Step away from the person. Step away from the environment that is making you feel the overwhelmed feeling. I do have a little short story to accompany this. So this past weekend, I got invited to the Webby Creator Weekend, which is in conjunction with the Webby Awards, which happens every single year. I was actually feeling a little imposter syndrome for the fact that I even got invited to this weekend, but I was very thankful to be invited. What I will say is when you get a ton of creators in a room for 2 full days, it's a lot. I was overwhelmed this weekend. I was very, very overwhelmed, especially on Saturday. I didn't know exactly how the weekend was going to go. I had never been before. It was from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. So 5 full hours of talking and mingling and listening to speakers and going to activations. And I came by myself. So I also didn't have anyone to fall back on as well. I was a free bird. Around 2:30 p.m., I mentally shut down. I was having a good time. I met a lot of great people. I loved all the panels that I sat in. However, I felt so overwhelmed because I hadn't been in such a concentrated space of so many people who do the same thing as me in a while. Also, if you guys are new here, I don't have coworkers, so I don't have that built-in aspect of life that a lot of people do, where you go to work and you have coworkers and you are consistently mingling with people. I don't have that. There's sometimes where I feel a little socially awkward sometimes. I know I'm not, but this past weekend, I'll be honest, I felt a little bit socially awkward because I haven't talked to that many people in such a concentrated small space in a long time. So I felt a little overwhelmed. So I remember a few times I went to the bathroom to just step away. I needed to step away, physically step away from people and be in my own little bubble for 5-10 minutes just to chill out and recalibrate. I also feel like I don't have the strongest social battery anymore. Again, I think it is because of my line of work now, the fact that I don't have coworkers, the fact that my job is very independent. I don't have the highest social battery anymore. So because of this, I need to do what I can to make sure that I feel regulated and make sure I feel okay. And there's nothing wrong with stepping away. I think there's such a misunderstanding about people feeling overwhelmed. A lot of people who don't really understand the situation and don't understand the gravity of it all, they can perceive someone like me who actually is pretty anxious to be closed off and to not want to converse with people. That's not true. I am going through something in my body and I need to regulate myself so that I'm able to actually show up and be my happy, bubbly self in person and in conversation with others. So if you are just like me and you get overwhelmed around a lot of people, please do not be afraid to step away. There's nothing wrong with stepping away. You're actually doing yourself a service by taking that time you need to just chill on your own. The next tip I would give is deep breathing. And I've mentioned this in past episodes, how I don't do meditation, but I feel like I need to try it again because I know deep breathing is a very big part of meditation. However, deep breathing as a whole helps to get oxygen into your body, into your lungs. It goes up to your brain and it helps you feel more regulated. There is, of course, so much science behind that. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know all the true technical terms for it, but I do know that when you are taking deep breaths, you are calming your body down slowly but surely. And what I have heard from some professionals is to take deep breaths for 10 seconds, close your eyes, think of your happy place. You should start to feel better immediately. The next immediate exercise you can try is a brain dump. Take some time to literally open your notes app and brain dump exactly how you feel in this moment. What does my body feel like? What does my heart rate feel like? What does my head feel like? Name very tangible parts of your body. And also name the environment you're in, because the environment is also, of course, adding to why you probably feel overwhelmed. And once you're able to paint a picture about how you feel, that is a really good indicator to understand why you're feeling overwhelmed so that you can actually help stop that feeling. And then the last immediate item is getting fresh air. If you are able to quite literally step away from your desk and go outside and breathe fresh air, that is very, very helpful. Looking outside, looking up, looking around, seeing other people, it reminds you that there is life outside of the bubble of your body that you're feeling this overwhelmed feeling, and movement doesn't hurt either. Taking a walk around the block, I have done this so many times in the last few months where I have felt very overwhelmed with work. There are times, and a lot of people don't know this because I don't really share this outwardly, but there are a lot of times where I'm sitting and working for 7-8 hours at a time, no breaks, because there's a lot of editing I'm doing, or there is a lot of work calls I have, and I feel overwhelmed. But I realize that I need to physically get up, physically move around, and I would prefer to do that outside where there's fresh air, there's nature, I can get some sun. It helps so much. All right, now let us talk about some long-term strategies to feeling less overwhelmed in your everyday life. Number one is delegate. This is such an important word. Delegating means to offload your burdens to someone else or to other people to spread that load so that you do not feel like you are holding all of it on your own. I have a very hard time doing this as someone who is very type A, very independent, a little bit of a control freak. I have a hard time delegating. I always have. But in the times where I have actually delegated a task that I don't have to do to someone else so that I can do the more important things on my to-do list, that has helped me feel so much more grounded. Delegating is just a reminder that you don't have to do it all on your own. I think a lot of people forget that we don't have to do everything on our own. And remembering that will put into perspective that being overwhelmed is probably a direct result of doing too much on your own. The next one is identify what is in your control to change. Here's the thing. There's so many things that we deal with that are out of our control. Once we pinpoint what is out of our control, we do have to just let that go. It's hard, but it is a mental shift that we all have to do to just pivot and focus on what we can do to actually help the situation we're in. The next one is prioritize. Focus on 20% of the tasks that produce 80% of the results. So this is focusing on the top priority items. So back to the to-do list example I gave earlier, we all have a to-do list, whether it is written down or a mental to-do list of checkpoints, things we have to get done probably every day, every week to just keep on moving forward. Our to-do list can get very long and very hefty, and seeing that all spread out can make us feel immediately overwhelmed. However, not all of them have the same level of importance. Some are very high priority items, and some can be done in the future, in the far future. So an example of this is having a work deadline and preparing for a presentation is far more important than figuring out the outfit you're going to wear for a dinner on Saturday. Both of these things are to-do items. However, one, of course, has way higher importance than the other. So what we're going to do is focus on our presentation and focus on making all our points and feeling really strong about what we're doing and meeting those work deadlines. Once that is all done, we can pivot and think about what we're going to wear on Saturday for the event. The next one is planning ahead. And this is definitely for my type A girlies like myself. I plan ahead all the time. If you guys saw my planner, you would be shocked. Maybe not shocked, because again, this is very true to me. I am such a planner. I plan weeks out in advance with my friends, with hangouts, with a lot of different things, just to make sure that my world keeps on spinning. So planning ahead is such a good way to not feel overwhelmed, because I'm not really a last minute girl. Okay. I am just not. I'm not. But for people who are more of a last minute type B personality, I would definitely encourage you to try to adopt some level of planning ahead. It does not have to be super psycho like me, who plans many, many weeks in advance. But let's use an example here. Moving apartments. Moving apartments requires some level of planning, of course. I actually just talked to a friend who is moving in 2 weeks, and she is a little overwhelmed because she has not planned movers and she doesn't have a core plan on how she's actually going to move from where she is in Manhattan to Brooklyn. And I told her to first start with figuring out movers, because for a lot of these moving companies, you do have to plan that kind of far in advance, but 2 weeks is still enough time to book movers. And then once you book movers, you know that you have a set date, and then you can dial backwards from there. You can plan a day to pack up your items. You can plan a day to go get boxes, because you of course need the boxes to then pack your items. Plan a day to go to the hardware store and probably get items that you need to patch up spots in the apartment so that you can get your security deposit back. There are a lot of different checkpoint items for specifically moving apartments. I have moved to 3 different apartments in New York City, so I am no stranger to this. Planning ahead, just in general, outside of moving apartments, is a really, really great way to not feel so overwhelmed, so that when moving day comes, you can just sit back and relax because you've already done all of the heavy lifting beforehand. The next one is break down tasks, essentially dividing larger projects into small, manageable, bite-sized steps so that you don't feel super overwhelmed by everything all at once. My example for this is editing content. So again, if you're new here, I am a content creator. I do that full time. A lot of my days are editing. A lot of days I am literally sitting and editing for hours and hours on end. Let me actually give you a very specific story about last December 2025, which was Vlogmas. For Vlogmas, I was so overwhelmed. If you don't know what Vlogmas is, it is a pretty OG YouTube trend where you create 12 videos in a row and post them for the first 12 days of December. I have done it for the past 2 years. However, this past Vlogmas was the most intense time I've ever done it because I really wanted them to be amazing. And I'm an overachiever. I'm type A. I really went there. I really did my big one with my Vlogmas series. But the only way I was able to get that done was by starting early. So I actually started in the middle of November to brain dump and create storyboards of every single one of those 12 videos that I wanted to make for December. I had my Notion templates. I literally wrote out my outline for every single one of the 12 videos. And then I planned what day I was going to film each one of those. And some of the days I had to overlap a few videos because, again, there were 12 videos. It was a lot of work. But I'm proud to say that within 2 full weeks, I was able to successfully plan, edit, and film all 12 videos so that when December 1st came, I actually only had to edit a few videos. Everything went up very smoothly. I saved myself a lot of stress because I was very overwhelmed. So let that story just be a point of motivation for you to break down tasks into smaller bite-sized chunks so that you are not overwhelmed by the entirety of a task. The next one is being able to say no. And this does fall into setting boundaries. But when we're talking on a long-term scale, it really is important to remember that no is a full sentence and you are able to say no to things that you don't want to do. Remember, we are letting go of our people-pleasing tendencies and we don't have to say yes to everything just because someone else wants us to do something. We have the autonomy to say no to what we don't want to do so that we don't feel overwhelmed. The next one is reduce digital overload. This is essentially doing a little bit of a digital detox and not being on your phone incessantly, because that obviously can bleed into feeling overwhelmed because you're so dialed into what's happening in media and you're forgetting that you have your own life and you have things that you have to do. So limiting your notifications, turning them off, decreasing your screen time, those are all important ways to not feel so fatigued from those distractions. And this is definitely what I would recommend anybody who is studying for finals specifically. Finals season is just so mentally taxing. And I will say it is good to have some reprieve and some mindless scrolling from time to time, but being disciplined with it is very, very important. Maybe give yourself a few 5-minute breaks every few hours of studying, but otherwise, ultimately, reducing it will help you feel more focused and less overwhelmed. And the last long-term tip I would say is setting routines, bringing it back to really core routines. your night routine and your morning routine. We all have a night and morning routine. Maybe it's a loose one for you, but we all have things that we probably do in the evening to prep for bed and in the morning to prep for our day. The most important thing here is to establish consistency, because when you are consistent about how you end your day and how you start your day, you will definitely be less overwhelmed. So think about your before bed rituals. One of my before bed rituals is reading for about 30 minutes to an hour before I go to bed. And this helps calm my brain down. I truly believe that this helps me sleep more soundly. One of my morning rituals is going to the gym. Like I said, I am rehabbing an injury, which is why I'm going to the gym this often, but I am really loving the routine of going to the gym every single morning, doing stretches, running, doing strength training. This really has helped set me up for success and make me feel a lot more focused and a lot more calm throughout my day. And then I wanted to end off with some mental shifts and self-care tips. The first one is embrace good enough. We are all so stuck on being the best at things and doing things to perfection, but good enough is truly good enough. We don't need to be striving for perfection every single time we do something. And most times completing a task is far more important than perfecting it. And the next one is practice self-care as a whole. Just wanted to reiterate some of the items that I did talk about in this episode, which is getting enough sleep, exercising regularly, and eating healthy meals. And the last one is seek support. It is so important to lean on other people. We are not supposed to go through this life alone. I've mentioned that before. We are supposed to lean on the people who are in our life and have that support system to get us through hard times. This can be friends, family, therapy. You guys know I love therapy. I've talked about that a ton, but whatever avenue you want to find support, I really encourage you to do so, because that will truly make such a big difference with how you feel. And those are all my tips I have for you guys for this episode. Just a reminder, the feeling of being overwhelmed is such a strong emotion. I don't want to ever discount that, but I really do believe that all the tips I gave in this episode will really help you guys feel so much more empowered and take back control. And with that, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Misunderstood. Remember to rate the show 5 stars on Apple and Spotify and follow it wherever you're listening. Join our Geneva group chat. It is always linked in the description of every single podcast episode. Hang out with me on my other socials, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Pinterest at nkmadani, and I will talk to you guys in my next one.